Good evening, Thursday night, my next in the series of Principles of Good Health. I know it's a Thursday again rather than a Tuesday. I will be going back to Tuesdays as of next week, which is the 25th, or is it the 26th? Whatever the Tuesday night is next week, I will be going live again on the Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Is there anybody there who is watching live tonight? Please say hi. Send me a little thumbs up or heart sign because it'd be great to know who's there. And do remember, if you've got any comments, then please add them because I do see them come up. So if you've got anything you want to ask me with regards to anything I'm talking about now, or anything else you'd like me to cover, or any questions that you've got, then please do ask me. So the series is going really, really well. Tonight I decided to talk about supporting good digestion, and the reason why I've decided to do that is every week I'm talking about different things with regards to healthy eating. I even did one about supplements. But at the end of the day, unless we are effectively breaking down our food in order to extract the nutrients from it, and this does actually include the supplements as well, then it is possible that no matter what quality the food is and how well we think we're eating, we may not be able to actually extract, digest and absorb the nutrients from the food that we're eating. And many, many years ago, depending on your age, you may recall a program. The less said about it, the better now, really. But let me just say, it was called You Are What You Eat. Well, that's not actually true, because it should be you are what you eat, what you can digest, and what you can absorb. So those are really, really important concepts to bear in mind. So digestion, it's all about the breakdown of the food that we're eating so that we can extract all the nutrients, the sugars, the amino acids and protein, the fatty acids and the fats, all the vitamins, the minerals, the other phytonutrients. These are plant-based compounds that we're discovering more and more of all the time from our foods, and they can then get absorbed from the gut and into the bloodstream so that we can utilize all of these to the benefit of our health and actually to survive. Before I go any further about that, do remember my 30 in 5-day challenge that's coming up starting a week on Tuesday. That's on the 2nd of March. So please do participate in this 5-day challenge. It is free. I will be posting lots of recipes and lots of tips. I'll be going live every single day. This is all with regards to how we can consume 30 different plant foods over 5 days, because these are absolutely essential in order to support the different beneficial strains of gut bacteria, of which we have trillions. There is plenty of information. If you look at the top of my page after this Facebook Live, there's plenty of information there under the events section to tell you more about what this is all about. And if you haven't signed up to participate in that, then please do so, because it is free. I'm going to try and make it fun, just to challenge ourselves and to prove that we can actually consume 30, maybe even more, different plant foods in a week. I can see there's some people there live, so do say hi, and if you've got any comments, then please do add them to comments and I will do my best to answer them as we go along. So here we are tonight talking about how to support good digestion. Well, digestion is all about the breakdown of food, and it actually does start before we put any food in our mouths, and it's called the cephalic phase of digestion, because even when we are looking at food, the smell of the food, the sight of the food, and then eventually the taste of the food, this is all part of the cephalic phase. And what that means is it's taking a message to the brain that then sends a message to our stomachs to really quickly, very, very quickly say food is coming. And the reason why it does that is because it starts the release of these very, very important, many and various digestive secretions that take place. So we shouldn't overlook this phase, and I think this is the one that we do tend to forget about, and it is absolutely fundamental, because in days gone by we would all be sitting down at a table in a more leisurely fashion, sitting there in good company, feeling very relaxed and taking the time to eat our food, and we wouldn't be rushing it. And this is what happens today. And so just preparing ourselves by taking the time to sit down, look at the food, smell the food before we even put that first mouthful in our mouth is just so important. And we do overlook all of these very important stages. It's a lot of what I want to say actually tonight. So as I said, this does trigger a message to the brain that very, very quickly, within nanoseconds, sends a message to the stomach, which is the sort of one of the first phases of digestion, to say that food is coming, be prepared, start releasing these really important secretions that are needed. And of course, once we do start the actual physical act of eating, which is the mechanical action of the chewing in the mouth, and this chewing action is really starting the mechanical, the breakdown, the tearing apart of food. Of course, if you're eating refined carbohydrates, there's not really going to be much action of chewing that's required. But when we're eating more plant-based foods with their tough cell walls, then the chewing action is really, really important to start to break down those tough cell walls in the plants that helps to then release the nutritional status within that food. So the chewing action again is very, very important. And the more we chew our food, of course, you'll know that the more saliva is released. And within saliva, again, there's an enzyme there, and these enzymes, digestive enzymes, and there's one there when we're chewing food, that actually starts to break down the carbohydrate content of food. And so it's called amylase, salivary amylase. Again, that's the release of that is another message to the brain that says, hey, stomach, food's coming, it's coming really quickly, be prepared. So when we're eating, we should be sitting without distractions. Today we're watching TV. I'm guilty of that as anyone, but ideally sitting at a table without the distractions, without looking at our phones, without watching TV, and sort of being very, very mindful. This concept of mindful eating, I don't know if you've heard of that, but I talk to my clients about mindful eating and sitting there without distractions and taking the time to chew our food. Don't overload the food in our mouth, smaller mouthfuls. Chew the food really well, because these are all the first phases and very, very important phases of digestion. And sitting upright, that's made me sit upright just even saying that, but sitting upright is really important because that puts us in the right physical way that we should be needed. Because if we're slouching over our food, then that puts more pressure on the stomach, and it can be very more difficult. If you've already got a slightly compromised digestion, it's going to be harder to digest food in that way. So just, you don't have to be in perfectly, but just sitting a little bit more upright is also very, very important. So that mindful eating, very, very important. Of course, the next thing to think about is how stressed you are. When we come rushing in, if we're rushing at lunchtime, thinking we must quickly eat before we need to go off and do the next thing, and if we're feeling a bit stressed when we start eating, of course we can't avoid all stresses in our life. Otherwise, a lot of the time, some of us are so stressed that we just wouldn't be able to eat at all. But be aware that actually, when we're in this stressful state, that stress is actually hindering digestion. We have two phases in our nervous system, and one is to do with when we're stressed, the sympathetic nervous system, and the other one is called the parasympathetic. This is when we're not stressed, and its very name, the common name that we refer to that phase, is called the rest and digest, and it's called that for very good reasons, because it's when we're in that phase that we're optimally able to digest our food. What that means is the body's able to release the secretions that are required to be the breakdown of all these different types of food that we're eating. So what can we do to support that? We may be feeling a bit uptight, we may be feeling a bit stressed, but just taking a few moments to try and compose ourselves before we start eating, and doing some deep breathing is highly beneficial. Just deep thinking and consciously thinking of taking a few deep breaths in, taking a few deep breaths out, and just trying to compose and calm ourselves before we start the act of digestion can really just help to shift us from that stress state, from the sympathetic, and into that rest and digest phase, the parasympathetic, so the body is more able again to be in the right phase of mind to be digesting food. Now, all of this that I'm talking about, you may think, well, I don't have any digestive symptoms, I feel absolutely fine. But I'm pretty sure that even though we may not apparently appear to have digestive symptoms, then it doesn't mean we are optimally able to break down our food. We do have various stages of digestion. So after the mouth, I said there's one enzyme that's released there that starts the breakdown of carbohydrates, but food very quickly goes to the stomach. The stomach is high up under the rib cage, and the food gets there very quickly from our mouth. And it's in the stomach that we have a lot of protein food that is digested there. There isn't really any other type of food that is digested in the stomach, although everything there with the acid that's released in the stomach all gets churned up and pulled apart a bit. But the actual physical act of digestion and pulling apart and breaking down food, it's mostly protein foods that's digested there. So you may find if you have a heavier meal, a denser type of protein like a steak or some other red meat that's a denser type of protein food, that you may get some symptoms, and that can be a sign that you don't have quite enough stomach acid. And therefore, thinking about all those things I've just said are even more important for those types of meals. Things that can really help with regards to the release of stomach acid, gastric acid is another name, hydrochloric acid is what it actually is. It's released in the stomach that's needed to break down protein foods, and we do need acid in our stomach. It's often felt that we have too much, but most often we don't have enough. There are certain foods that are called bitters. You can get bitter foods. Rocket is a very well-known bitter type food, and chicory is quite a bitter food. So often having a small amount of that at the start of a meal can be very, very helpful to digest that meal. Another simple technique and tip I give to some of my clients, if digestion may be very, very slightly compromised, that can help digestion in the stomach, is taking 1 or 2 teaspoons of lemon juice in 1 to 2 teaspoons of water. It's the same quantity of each, and you would actually just drink that immediately before start eating a meal. You could replace the lemon juice with apple cider vinegar, and it's that small quantity, 1 to 2 teaspoons in 1 to 2 teaspoons of water. It's the same quantity that's really important. And just doing that just before you start eating can make a difference to any sign that you may have of discomfort and indigestion before you start eating your meal. Now, something else to think about. I often find that a lot of clients eat a lot of salad type food and maybe not quite so much cooked vegetables. Sometimes I say to people that actually eating raw vegetables can be quite a challenge on the digestive tract. The Chinese talk about a soupy consistency in the stomach, and when we eat raw foods, it can be more of a challenge in the stomach to be pulling apart that food. And when we have cooked foods, I said at the start how plant foods have these tough cell walls around them that can be hard to break down. That's what creates all this fibre that we need in our diet. So we do need it, but can be more challenging on the digestive tract. So if you think you may have a bit of a challenge with certain foods, then think more about eating cooked foods, cooked vegetables, and eating less of the salad and the raw type vegetables, and that can also support digestion. We need to be eating lots of these. I've talked about my 30-day challenge and my 5-day challenge, 30 plant foods in 5 days. But if we're eating the raw ones, they can be more of a challenge. Just maybe simply cooking your vegetables slightly more, steaming them helps to retain the beneficial nutrients, can just help start to break down those tough cell walls through the cooking process to help release some of those valuable nutrients and support your digestion in that way. I find clients often have an overload of dairy in their diets or wheat, and both of these either or separately or together can be a bit of a challenge for people, and it tends to be more that it's an overload of these foods rather than the food themselves is a problem. Certainly for certain individuals, we know that some of these foods can be difficult and on the digestive tract or for other reasons. But I would say to start with, maybe just keep a food diary. Keep a food diary of what you're eating, and just going back and look over that over a few days just to see, is there a high amount of wheat in your diet, or is there a high amount of dairy in your diet? You may be surprised when you look back that actually there is, whether it's milk, cheese, yogurts, there can be a lot of dairy. And again with wheat, if it's toast or in cereals or in pasta, in pastries and pies, you may be surprised just how much wheat. If you're buying soup, you'll often find there can be wheat in there as well. So just have a little look and just see if that's the case. And from that, you can look at perhaps reducing down the amount of those foods that are in your diet. Again, if you've got digestive symptoms of any kind, keeping what I call a food reaction chart can be quite useful. Again, just plotting the food that you're consuming and plotting against that any reactions, any symptoms that you may have had. It may just help to highlight something that may be challenging your digestive symptoms. However, if you start to take on board some of those things that I said, then you may find that actually those help overcome any digestive symptoms that you're experiencing, rather than having to take out and eliminate any foods from your diet. Because to me, most of the problems come from poor digestive processes rather than the food per se. So those are the main things I wanted to talk about. Simple ways that you can help support your digestive system and therefore help you ensure that you're breaking down your foods, you're extracting all the valuable nutrients, and helping to get those, digest them and absorb them into the bloodstream, so that you're not wasting anything that you're eating. If you're spending lots of money eating good foods or buying supplements, that you're getting everything you can extracted from them and absorbing everything into the bloodstreams that you can utilise it. So the microbiome, the gut bacteria is the last thing to consider, because that actually does help with digestion too, particularly with the breakdown of lactose. Certain bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, help the breakdown of dairy, the lactose in dairy, and they do help break down other foods as well. So supporting the gut bacteria comes down to many things, and again making sure we do eat the right foods, because sugary foods and processed foods are going to be destroying some of those beneficial bacteria, whereas if we eat plenty of plant type foods, that helps to nurture and grow and support levels of good bacteria. So think about taking part in my free 5-day challenge. It's coming up on the week on Monday, on the 2nd of March. The details are in the event section on my page, and you do need to register for that by clicking on that link. That helps to ensure you'll then get all the email information I'm going to send to you. You will also then get an email with a link that then invites you into the closed Facebook group that you need to click on to get access to the Facebook group, where I'll be posting more information. You'll be part of the community where I'll be sharing our supporting each other with tips and hints and comments, and I'll be doing some lives in there every week as well. So thanks for participating again today. Next week will be on the Tuesday, which I think is the 25th, or is it the 26th? But it's definitely going to be on the Tuesday at 6 p.m. So I hope to see you there next week. Thanks and have a good evening.